Hello, everybody. My name is Selenanil. If you know of me and my channels, you know that I'm a huge advocate for different role playing games, stuff like that. And that I do a lot of home brewing or making things my own as they go. I thought I'd share some of it with you, a bit of the world of the Haven Guard, the world that my Crit Idiots, a Pathfinder campaign series, is set in. Think of them as little lore snippets about the races and people that the players are introduced to and deal with throughout the course of the story. To begin with, I'd like to start with a wedding. It's a happy ceremony, yes? Let's begin with a wedding. One of our players, a dark elf by the name of Zin, uh, became engaged and eventually wed to a Triton woman by the name of Ziggleplex. And Ziggleplex is a very powerful, prominent member of society. She is a political position of no small renown that has only grown even further over the course of the story to such heights that people would have never thought possible before. So it would have stand reason that Zin, this houseless, classless rogue who's becoming a folk hero, but not quite fully established by this point, have a wedding traditional in her style. Zen also felt little connection to the individual ways of his people. So, of course, what did this mean for me as the dungeon master? Well, I needed to come up with what a trading wedding was going to be. Because for plot-related reasons, it was going to be rather important for certain events to occur during the wedding. And so it wasn't something we could just gloss over, like, oh, and yes, by the way, during the downtime, Zine got married. That wouldn't have been fun at all. So I wrote a speech for the priest to give at the wedding, and I wrote out all the mechanics and breakdown of a traditional Triton wedding in my setting. And I'm going to read you my notes. The traditional Triton wedding ceremony can be broken down into 4 key sections: the kinship giving, the arrival of the couple, the ceremony itself, and a celebratory feast. And each of those has their own little parts. We're going to start with the kinship giving. The kinship giving. Both the bride and groom in a Triton wedding have what humans normally refer to as a wedding party. In traditional human weddings, they are maids of honor, best men, groomsmen, or bridesmaids. Tritons, however, do not limit these roles to either gender. Instead of being members who take a particular place within the ceremony, their importance comes before the ceremony begins. The marrying couple select 3 to 4, though more or less is acceptable, people with whom they have a powerful bond as their kin, to come to them in private before the ceremony. To be selected by a friend for this is a great honor, as it implies a connection beyond blood or circumstance. It is the bride or groom's declaration that they would expect you to fight as vehemently for their spouse as you would them, and declaring that they would do the same for you if there was ever a need. It is a declaration of family. It is, you are closer than blood. You are something that I would defend, and the things you will care for are things that I would defend with the same passion I would defend you. The chosen kin are expected to spend a few minutes in private with their respective companions. It is at this point they are meant to offer a piece of advice, wisdom, or reassurance to help cement their companion's decision. It is also a common tradition that the chosen kin provide a small gift that can be worn for the ceremony to represent themselves and their position within the coupling of the future husband and wife. Or couple. We'll get into same-sex marriages in a little bit. But the gift giving is an older tradition that hasn't been in mainstream for about the past 30 years. It isn't required or expected. After this, we move on to the arrival of the bride and groom. The arrival of the bridegroom is an important moment in a Triton wedding. The groom approaches first, with his arms locked in the father of the bride's. Should her father not be alive, it would fall then to the responsibility of the closest male relative. Should there be none, then her mother or closest female relative may fill this role, though that is very rare, as most brides would elect to choose a close friend of the family or a man they deeply trust for this, often someone they choose for the kinship meeting. This is done specifically so that the father of the bride could have a final moment with his son-to-be, to take a measure of his character and decide for himself if his daughter has made the right choice. Rarely does the father elect to interrupt the wedding after this moment, but it has been known to happen, and the resulting conflicts are almost always bloody. The bride, alternatively, is taken up near the surface of the water, as Triton weddings are almost always held underwater, of course, by a friend or ally chosen by the priest who is officiating the wedding. There she watches over the town or city below. That will be the place where she makes the oath to her partner. She is left there to float quietly down to the ceremony below. It is a moment to look out over the land of the people she is committing to becoming a member of the community of as a couple. It is a moment of contemplation of where her life is and the decisions she has made. It is also a moment of reminiscence, to breed intense emotion for the couple to see each other again. This time is left strictly silent, so that the father and the groom can have their conversation during the walk without being interrupted. It is also so that the bride may have silence as she descends, and allows herself to fully immerse herself in her thoughts and memories. In a Triton wedding, involving same-sex couples, including transsexuals, where there is no clear division of genders, or at least not one that is recognized, neither of them are taken up to the surface for descent, and instead two separate entrances are created in the layout of the ceremony, so both parties can be led down with their partner's father or a significant chosen representative. In the rare case of a polyamorous wedding, this is duplicated to match the number of partners involved. And who gets to walk with each person's father or representative is chosen by the representatives themselves. Once picked, they discuss who they would wish to walk down the aisle with, which can lead to some rather interesting interactions, I assure you. This leads us to the ceremony. The ceremony is broken down into several parts. The introduction of the couple, a prayer to the Triton pantheon of gods, and officiating the wedding with a kiss and the ritual known as the binding. Oh, my pages are stuck together there. Hoorah. The introduction of the couple is a rather simple part of the ceremony, as even if a member of the party is well-renowned or of great importance, Tritons use titles and additives for one another very sparingly. So it's very quick to the point. They want to get to the main prayer of the ceremony. The prayer, the main part of the ceremony, goes to each god of the Triton pantheon by a powerful priest or priestess to apply their blessings to those to be wed. And in unique cases, these blessings can vary, specific if the person who is delivering the prayer and officiating the wedding is close with the couple and has a deep knowledge of their life. The priest or priestess tends to spend a good bit of time with the couple, if at all possible, to get to know them so that they can personalize the ceremony. First to be prayed to is Ferap, the Triton Lord of War. Since the events roughly 200 years ago, during the start of the War of the Gods, it has become tradition that Ferap be the first god prayed to during the wedding ceremony. It is called upon as a protector for the couple, or a guiding hand to direct their strike towards the right goals. Rarely is violence ever directly referenced. Shogte is second to receive prayers, a Triton goddess of fertility, agriculture, and abundance. She is depicted as a large woman surrounded by schools of fish. She is often prayed to ensure that the married party achieve the number of children they desire, and that they and their children are healthy and strong. This is included in same-sex weddings, as there are ways for certain things to be achieved. Of course, magic is involved. But beyond that, the Triton prayer always is very neutral on number. It never implies that they must have a children, but only should they choose such a path for themselves. The Triton understand that people live very different lives, and their gods are believed to respect that. Thirdly, we pray to Oa, the god of light and darkness, who represents the emotions of the brain and the heart. He is prayed to so that in times of struggle or pain, those who are joined will remember their greatest moments and be able to rise above. Ketev, the goddess of law and justice, as well as the wild, is shown as a mother of wild life wrapped in kelp and always hoarded by animals of the deep. Ketev is prayed to so that nature will bless the union of the party. And that the justice... Oh, we're stuck together again. These are old sheets, everybody. And that justice prevails, and that the justice of the sea will prevail and find their love and actions just. Fifthly, they pray to Vishak, the god of storms and currents. He is brought forth to protect those to be wed from the cruelness of the sea's wrath, and has offered up a gift of their union to be appeased. This is especially focused on in weddings of those Triton who travel far and wide in the waters. Normally something very powerful or important to one of the members of the family, or all of the members if at all possible. Something of great worth of an emotional level is offered to the god. Lastly, the goddess of the deep, dark, and secrets is called forward, Gale. Gale is called upon last as she is the holder of all her people's secrets, the one whose eyes pierce the dark and is shrouded by mystery. It is this point that Gale is called upon to reveal any secrets of those in the wedding party who have a burden that needs to be borne. They may cast it without fear. At this point, anyone in attendance may speak forward toward the couple with information as to why the group should not be wed. See further back where I mentioned fathers speaking their piece. It is an extremely important part of the ceremony where silence is expected. To speak at this part of the ceremony is to declare your intent for the married couple to not have their moment, to rob them of their thunder, to ensure that the issue within you is so important that it must be brought to bear. And Gale is said to influence these moments, to force them to speak the truth of their mind and in their hearts. Accusations at these moments are not required to be met with proof, and instead are met with a contest of arms. Originally, it was said to be created by Gale as a part of the ceremony to rid her children the burden of an unrequited love. At the final moment, to give one who had been too timid or scared to clear the truth of their feelings a moment to be released, fueled by her power. These duels that result from these declarations are rarely fatal, as the kill at the wedding is an ill omen, but they are almost always extremely violent and passionate, as Sora is the heart at these moments. It is also believed that Gale has a direct influence over this as well, that she manipulates everyone in the crowd into a heightened sense of emotion, that the feelings they feel are not their own, but enhanced by the workings of the priest. It has evolved over time to have a much wider moment of meaning in the ceremony, but it is still, of course, almost universally performed. Barring any issues with the prayer to Gale, and if the issues did arise and the party continue with the wedding after whatever secrets are revealed, the official will then call upon those to be wed to share a kiss and embrace, for the blessing of their god is upon them. As the kiss is shared, the priest will declare the two wed and bound to each other. As this happens, he will channel a spell into a strand of seaweed or kelp that he specifically chooses for the couple. It will wrap around their arms as they embrace, connecting the two together for the night. Traditionally, it is the male's left arm and the woman's right, but this varies by the priest who does the spell. The kelp will eventually fade away and sink into their skin, dyeing it like a tattoo in a unique pattern as unique as the strand of plant that was chosen, creating a permanent link between the married couple. This process takes 24 hours. As this can be extremely uncomfortable for polyamorous weddings, it is often foregone. Instead, they may choose to go with the human tradition of a set of rings or jewelry that is matched. However, the jewelry is blessed again with a single strand of kelp, stained with it, and must be done 24 hours before the wedding, or it's considered a faux pas. A priest would still deal with it in the moment as best as he could, or she, priestess, but it would be very ill-formed to drop that on a priest or priestess at the last moment. After the ceremony comes the celebratory feast, often accompanied with bioluminescent light shows by wildlife coaxed by druids and shamans, dancing and music. It is a night of enjoyment and excitement, preceded by a large meal with the bound husband and wife at the head of the table. The two spend the night together, basking in the enjoyment of their guests and speaking to those who will come to offer their congratulations. I believe we're almost at the end of my notes on the wedding. It is a moment for the married party to relax as their guests celebrate and go wild. They are allowed a moment to themselves to join as they see fit. The feasts traditionally go until the last party member has left or fallen asleep, though in times of great abundance they can go for days. This is often more seen in rural Triton communities where the population and guest lists are likely to be much smaller. And that is a traditional Triton wedding in just under 15 minutes. And a very important part of the story of the Haven Guard, where it bound together a very important player and a very important NPC. I look forward to any comments you might have about Triton weddings or any other questions about how my world goes. If you have any questions at all about the lore of the world of the Haven Guard, which I call Tyre, please send me a message. I'd be happy to address any sort of questions in videos like this. I don't get many comments on my videos. I'd appreciate any questions you might have, any random thought that fills your mind. This has been the Triton Wedding.